Do you want me to keep an eye on? Yeah. Good evening. Welcome to the January 16th Plan and Zoning Commission meeting. I will get started with the rules and procedures. The Plan and Zoning Commission is generally an advisory body to the City Council. The City Council will hold a public hearing and make the final decision on all matters before the Commission other than site plans and subdivision plats, unless denials or conditional approvals thereof are appealed. Please contact the City Clerk or Development Services staff for details on council hearings. Applicants will be given 10 minutes to present the request. Proponents and then opponents from the public are allowed to speak in that order, with each speaker allowed a maximum of 5 minutes. Applicants are then allowed a 5-minute rebuttal if necessary. The hearing will then be closed, and the Commission will discuss and vote on the issue. All comments are to be germane to the item under consideration, and speakers are to maintain a courteous manner. Items listed on the consent portion of the agenda will not be individually discussed and will be considered for approval in accordance with the staff recommendation, unless an individual present or a member of the Commission requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately under the public hearing agenda. Before we get started with tonight's items, can I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes? Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions, same sign. Thank you. Motion passes. We have a few items on the consent agenda tonight. Starting with item number 1, which is a request from the Board of Waterworks trustees for review and approval of a public hearing site plan, the Moines Waterworks Distribution Building Addition, for property located at 408 Floor Drive, and for a Type 2 design alternative in accordance with City Code, to allow an overhead door on a primary frontage facade where it is permitted only in a non-primary or rear facade per City Code. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to pull this item from consent? Anyone from the Commission? Seeing none, this item will remain on consent. Item number 2 is a request from InvestDSM for the following regarding property located in the vicinity of 3610 Fifth Avenue. A, determination as to whether the requested rezoning is in conformance with the Plan DSM. B, amend the Plan DSM to revise the future land use classification of the property from low-density residential within a neighborhood node to high-density residential within a neighborhood node. And C, to rezone property from MX1 mixed-use district to RX1 mixed-use district to allow redevelopment of the property for a multiple household building with up to 12 dwelling units. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to pull this item from the consent agenda? Anyone on the Commission? Seeing none, the item will remain on consent. Item number 3 is a city-initiated request to rename a segment of Lake Ridge Avenue to Sweetwater Drive. The street segment is located to the east of Southeast 30th Street between East Army Post Road to the north and East Pine Avenue to the south. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to remove this item from the consent agenda? Anyone in the commission? Seeing none, this item will remain on consent. Item number 4 is a request from Lifestyle Communities for review and approval of a public hearing site plan, Artesa on Ingersoll, for properties located in the vicinity of 3111 and 3121 Ingersoll Avenue, and for the following Type 2 design alternatives in accordance with City Code. A, to allow a building setback of 18 feet where the required primary frontage build-to zone for the mixed-use commercial building is 0 to 5 feet per City Code. B, allow 0% primary frontage coverage for the mixed-use commercial building where 90% is required per City Code. And C, to allow a 216-foot building width for the 6-unit row building where the maximum allowed building width is 120 feet per City Code. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to pull this item from the consent agenda? Is there anyone in the commission? Seeing none, this item will remain on consent. Item number 5 is a request from Ryran LLC for review and approval of a public hearing site plan, Graham's Collision, for the property located at 1500 East Army Post Road, and for the following Type 2 design alternatives in accordance with City Code. A, to waive the requirement to have a principal entrance on a primary frontage facade per City Code, and B, to allow garage doors to be located on the street-facing facade where prohibited per City Code. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to pull this item from the consent agenda? Anyone in the commission? Seeing none, this item will remain on consent. There is also a request for items number 6 and number 7 to be moved to the consent agenda tonight. I will go over those items. Item number 6 is a request from Big Deal Investments for the following regarding property located at 1424 Army Post Road. A, determination as to whether the requested rezoning is in conformance with Plan DSM. B, rezone property from RX1 mixed-use district to MX3 mixed-use district to allow reuse of the property for a vehicle sales and service vehicle rental use. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to pull this item from the consent agenda? Or who will oppose to move this item to the consent agenda? Seeing none, is there anyone in the commission? Seeing none, this item will be moved to the consent agenda. And item number 7 is a request from Big Deal Investments LLC for review and approval of a Type 2 design alternative in accordance with City Code to allow a vehicle rental business on a property located at 1424 Army Post Road containing 0.327 acres of land where a minimum of 1/2 acre of land is required per City Code. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to maintain this item on the public hearing agenda? Seeing none, is there anyone on the commission? Seeing none, we can move these 2 items to consent. I will entertain a motion to move these 2 items to consent.
I'll move that these items get pushed to consent.
Thank you, Emily. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion passes. So now we have items 1 through 7 on the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion passes. So that brings us to item number 8 on our public hearing agenda tonight, which is a request from JAPA for the following regarding approximately 10.3 acres of land located in the vicinity of 1661 County Line Road. A, determination as to whether the requested rezoning is in conformance with Plan DSM. B, amend the Plan DSM to revise the future land use classification of the property from business park to low-medium density residential. And C, to rezone property from EX mixed-use district to RX1 mixed-use district to allow a future development with permanent and temporary homes and associated uses. Suriyoshi will present from staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's Suriyoshi Chakraborty, Planning Staff. I will be presenting item number 8, which is a request from JAPA for property in the vicinity of 1661 County Line Road. The request is to rezone approximately 10.3 acres of property from EX mixed-use district to RX1 mixed-use district to allow a future development. And there's also a concurrent request to revise the future land use designation from business park to low-medium density residential to allow the proposed RX1 mixed-use district. This is the subject property. It's in the vicinity of County Line Road. This is to the south of Army Post Road and to the east of Floor Drive. So it's about halfway in between Floor Drive and Southwest 9th Street. And the subject property is to the north of County Line Road. It includes undeveloped land. It's currently zoned EX district, as you can see here. The proposal to rezone is about 10.3 acres, which is the shaded portion right here, from EX district to RX1 mixed-use district. This would allow a future development to allow both permanent and temporary homes and a community building as well as a few associated uses. This is an aerial view of the subject property. And I have a few photographs here to give you context of the area. This is looking east from Floor Drive. As you can see, the road section in this area between Floor and Southwest 10th is currently unpaved and unimproved. There is undeveloped land here. There's also some topography change. As you can see, the land going up. And then this is looking further east, and you can again see the topography change here with the street. The subject property is roughly in the vicinity of this area, if you can follow my cursor. A few other views just to get a feel for the subject property from County Line Road. And this is again looking west towards Floor Drive. Again, you can see the rise in the elevation from here, the subject property being where my cursor is placed. So with that, I would like to give you an overview of the proposed project. The applicant was required to submit a large-scale development plan, which is required of any development that is over 5 acres, whether it's a single parcel or a combination of multiple parcels. It allows staff to see, get a better picture of what the street network is, the connectivity, the blocks and accesses, as well as the layout. So this is the large-scale development plan that was submitted to staff. You can see to the left here the proposed uses that have been broken out into a couple different phases. So the phase 1, which is the colored area, is the area that is to be rezoned, and it's phase 1. There is currently no plans for phase 2, and it's not part of the rezoning or the large-scale development plan. Should anything ever be proposed in phase 2, that would require a separate rezoning as well as large-scale development plan. So with that, moving on to phase 1, the area that we are currently looking at, the subject property, it is again broken out into phase 1A and 1B, and if you can follow this dashed line right here, to the north of that is phase 1B, and to the south of that is phase 1A. The proposal at the moment, as you can see, there's a variety of different housing products that are proposed here. Some of the permanent homes that are proposed include single units, bi-attached, threeplexes, modular homes. There's also temporary homes, which are modular shelters. Those are proposed as well. Additionally, the community center building, which is in phase 1A, is located right here, and the storm detention. There's 2 accesses proposed into the site, which is required by code. The exact or precise location of the accesses are not determined at this time. This is conceptual at the site planning stage. The applicant will be working with fire and other departments to determine the exact location of those details. At this time, there are approximately 54 units that are being proposed. The applicant has indicated that with the full build-out, the range of the total number of units could be anywhere between 80 to 107 dwelling units. That has yet to be determined, but the land use classification of low-medium density that you see is based on being able to allow the maximum, which would be 107 dwelling units on that 10.3 acre of land. Additionally, there are some uses that are accessory to the primary uses are proposed as well, and they're listed here. They include maintenance facilities, worship space, laundry facility, other recreational and outdoor community amenities that are all listed here. So that is summary of the project and the large-scale development plan. So with that, I would like to talk a little bit about the land use in the adjoining area. This is a snapshot of the future land use designation. The subject property that you are looking at is right here. The blue color is a business park designation. As you can see in this area, there is a mix of residential as well as light industrial and business park type uses. With the proximity to Fleur Drive, there are some commercial and light industrial business type uses, but adjoining the subject property, there is some low medium density as well as low density residential in the vicinity. Therefore, staff believes that the proposed land use designation is appropriate for this area given proximity to other low density and low medium density type uses. As I move to the staff report, I would like to point out a minor correction. In the staff report that you received, we indicated that the subject property is not located within a designated neighborhood. It is actually located within the Water South Neighborhood Association boundary. So I just wanted to point that out. That has been corrected in the staff report. In your staff report, we've also outlined a few pertinent information relating to the large-scale development plan, the infrastructure, and other improvements that would be required as this property is developed. I can get to those if you have any questions. Additionally, building and fire code, as well as the utility requirements that would be needed as the site develops. Staff does think that there is a need for diverse housing in our community, and the applicant is providing a housing product that currently does not exist in our community. So we feel that this is something that will add value and will add that housing, an additional housing choice to our residents. And therefore, staff is supportive of this project and this request, so long as the applicant does comply with the zoning conditions that have been proposed by staff. And with that, I'll move to the zoning conditions. Staff is recommending approval from EX to RX1 district, subject to the condition that the developer shall be responsible for extension of all utilities, which include water and sewer connections, as well as streets. Specifically with that, the developer shall be responsible for improving County Line Road from Fleur Drive to the eastern extent of the subject property to an urban street standard and to the satisfaction of the city engineer. Should the property to the east develop before this particular development starts happening, then the developer shall only be responsible for the extension of the improvements to the eastern extent of the subject property to the point where it's improved by the adjoining property owner. Any adjoining property used or developed in common with the subject property shall incorporate all necessary utilities and street right-of-way improvements, and any principal uses shall be limited to those described on an approved large-scale development plan. Again, I'd like to remind you, I went over the proposed uses in the large-scale development plan, so this relates to the proposed uses that have been outlined in the large-scale development plan. So those are the staff recommendations and the conditions of approval. The applicant conducted a informational neighborhood meeting and also worked one-on-one with the neighborhood association and other landowners. They will be providing a more detailed summary of this, but I just wanted to scan through this really quickly so you could look through. This is the sign-in sheet of the attendees at their meeting. And this is some of the information that was shared by the applicant with the attendees of the neighborhood meeting. Staff did not receive any comment cards or letters, either in support or in opposition to this project, so this is the consent map. And that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Yes, they sought a rezoning. I think, Shreyash, if you want to go back to that page on the staff board, I don't remember the exact dates, but the application was withdrawn after the Planning and Zoning Commission. They had moved on to City Council, so it didn't proceed.
Can I just remind commissioners to use their mic, please? Thank you.
Can you elaborate on why it was withdrawn, or is that something we should ask the applicant?
I would leave it to the applicant if you'd be curious.
Questions for staff? Sorry, I know it's been a long time since I raised this, sorry about that, but utilities, what is the definition and scope of our utilities, and is communication utilities able to be incorporated into these as well? For example, conduits. I know that we've had projects in the city where I've raised before, if they're already going to be required to put in their own conduits, would not be in our best interest for the city to actually have extra conduit laid with it at that time so we don't disturb in the future and we ensure access to internet access, digital access. Is communication considered a utility yet or no?
Based on the on our database, there's communication type utilities currently exist on Fleur Drive and Southwest 9. So if the applicant would like to connect, they would have to extend it from either Southwest 9th or Fleur Drive.
And as far as the ability to actually require, extra like future looking undergrounded conduit, is that something we have started discussing with applicants yet, or is that something that's not in the realm of what we've started talking about?
Right now, the discussion with the utilities is limited to water, sewer, road. I don't believe there's been any discussion about that.
I think, and Jillian might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of the communications utility work is done at, they have franchise agreements to operate in the right of way, and they coordinate and work on those, where the city processes are more geared to traditional sewer, water.
Yeah, I guess my point being, since the traditional is not the modern and is not the future, and the fact is that fiber conduit will be essentially the roads that are going to power, especially places like this, which is probably going to be doing retraining, doing all kinds of other digitally enabled services. having just copper wire to 14.4 seems like it would be short-sighted of us not to look at ensuring that they have the right level of digital access needed to allow the economic improvement we would be hoping to provide here. And if we don't underground at the beginning, we underground later, and it's a big mess. I think I discussed this on the 6th and Walnut project when they were going and going to tear everything up. My question was, is there some way we can, since we were giving them, I think, $18.4 million of incentives, can we also actually add and require them, like TIF is used in California and other places, expansion of the infrastructure that will actually lead to digital access and ensure digital access in the future? So I'm just curious if there's a way to make sure, when do we look at that? Who should look at that? And if we haven't started, why have we not started to pursue a strategy that ensures that the future, especially in this places where this would be a huge, 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 great test case, it's wide open. It's also, there's going to be very, very little cost to add it and massive future opportunity for it. How would we ensure that we actually look at that more smartly here and potentially future? Who do we need to talk to about that?
I think that's beyond the scope of what we can accomplish tonight. I think that's
It's utility.
Larger discussion, because and I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert in how it all works, but the communication companies, that sort of service is led by them. They have franchise agreements to use the right-of-way. I don't dispute that, we should be thinking about how they're going to use the right-of-way and that sort of stuff, but it's not led by a city process. Maybe in the future it should be, but it's not.
My point is, we're requiring an old school road that carries old school cars. We're requiring that to be now put in there and upgraded. Why can't we require the upgrading of the pathway for the future digital interstates that we're going to need in our city? I would argue it is a utility. It is an extension utility. Who do we need to talk to actually get thoughtful and strategic about that in projects like this?
Yeah, I just think it's something that we're not going to be able to resolve tonight. I mean, it sounds like, are you asking that, I don't think we have the expertise here tonight to kind of negotiate through service providers and franchise agreements.
I'm just asking to put a tube underground, the same we're going to be putting concrete and curbs on the top. That's what I'm asking about.
Right.
And I've asked about it, I know, for a number of years, and I know I've laid off the pedal on
I
it.
do think
But-
in this setting, it's a little different than like in our downtown where it's just constant paving. We will have grass area available for utilities to have easy access because of the nature of the road. So
To be fair, we
that
did
makes
ask.
you feel better, Chris.
A little bit. What I'm saying is I think it's probably better to do something thoughtful and new somewhere where it's easier, where screwing up isn't a big problem. So I agree with you. This looks like one of those perfect test cases to fix something now and be thoughtful about it now when the stakes aren't as high versus somewhere downtown where we may have a little more concern or access to error. So I know we can't resolve it tonight. I guess my question was, is communication and is data connectivity utility? We're saying right now we haven't looked at it as being a utility, and we also don't entirely know who we need to talk to actually change that perspective. And I would argue, I would like us to look at making sure that extra conduit that we own as a city is there, because as we've seen from Mediacom, with time, those services degrade. And if we're going to ensure that we retain the opportunity to be a place we want to live, we should be having the same way as we infill sidewalks, we should be owning our own conduit because that is our future road, and this would be a great test case. Sorry for the repeat, but that's really the summary of where I'm going. And the answer is, no, it's not utility. Sorry. I'd really, really like us to change that.
Jane?
I have a question about utilities also, and so I'm the newbie, and I was surprised to see all of the burden for the cost of utilities to be on the developer, in particular when we're talking about a project that's targeting very low-income folks. And I guess my question is just if this is our standard, do we do this for all subdivisions and all development? And do we have any programs to help decrease the cost for this type of housing project that's targeting very low-income people?
Yeah, the answer to the first question, development is expected to extend services. That's normal. So regardless of the use, the purpose, development extends, streets, extends services to it. It provide, it's typical, and that's typical across municipalities, across states.
But many
I don't-
municipalities have programs for low-income housing development where there's ways
Right.
to subsidize that to help bring down the
Yeah.
cost of the development, right?
They may. I'm not, but the first question is it typical for development to pay for utilities extension? The answer is yes. The second question, if you're asking me, am I aware of a program that can be specifically used, that I am not.
So we don't make those exceptions here. We don't have programs to do that.
There's not a specific program set up for the extension of infrastructure for specific uses. I mean, the city has a CIP, we have, programming. There's nothing programmed for this road, so there's no intention in the near term within the CIP planning timeframe for a city project in this area. So development needs to provide the infrastructure that's needed to support their development.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry,
I have a
last-
question for staff. Why are we, is there a plan to split this property? Why is it half of it is rezoned and the other half is going to remain as the current zone?
The applicant currently does not have a plan for Phase 2, so it has not been included in the rezoning. Depending on what the future proposed development and uses for Phase 2, it could have a different zoning district, and so that determination has not been made. That's why it's not been included in this rezoning.
Other questions? No? Well, then I'll invite the applicant up to present. Thanks, Shiriyoshi. Applicant, you have up to 10 minutes. Please state your name and address.
I'm Jim Hagberg, board member for JAPA Ministries, and address is 2326 Euclid. Thanks for the opportunity to present this project. We don't know who knows what about our ministry, so we want to explain that, and we'll take any questions y'all have as well. Just a second. I didn't know how it was set up. Okay, so JAPA has a 16-year history of ministering to people experiencing homelessness. We develop relationships, we help them survive, we help lift people off the streets, and we help them find housing and rebuild their lives. As you can see on this chart, we started in 2008, and we've lifted 684 people, formerly homeless people, off the streets of Des Moines with an 83% retention rate. So doing a JAPA village is the natural next step by providing permanent homes that are truly affordable for those in need. JAPA purchased this property from the city of Des Moines and the Wastewater Reclamation Authority specifically for the purpose of developing this village. Ms. Ryoshi did a good job of covering details from the large-scale development plan. I just note that we're to pave the County Line Road to Fleur Drive and extend water to Fleur Drive. So as, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but mentioned, that's quite a burden on a nonprofit, but we've taken it on. And we understand and agree that it's normally the role of a developer to take something like that on. So this is a substantial benefit to land values in the area and future development in the area. BSB Design Group is our architect for the projects. This is one of the cottage homes that they designed. It's a 384 square foot home, and we've actually constructed this in Cheatham Park. So it's modest, yes, but it's attractive, spacious, vaulted ceilings, and very comfortable for someone coming out of homelessness. Joe Stevens is the CEO of JAPA, and I'd prefer that he handle this in the next slide.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for allowing us to be here tonight. So in addition to housing and beautifully architecturally designed housing that's very dignified, we will have community service buildings, and so there's a large community building. There'll be other buildings as the project continues. And of course, there'll be a commercial kitchen for people to enjoy cooking together and for outside organizations and volunteers to come in, dining facilities, some of the things we talked about, classrooms. But we've been working with Broadlines and the free clinics of Iowa, and there'll be a medical clinic right on site. And of course, we'll have spaces for service providers to come in and provide professional services, just like you see at shelters. And so everything from casework to mental health to just a variety of services will be available, insurance firms, et cetera. We have, Jim didn't mention, but we also have, in addition to going out to where people are living under bridges and tents and in vehicles every single week for 16 years without missing a week, we opened a homeless resource center in Des Moines, and that's stocked with a lot of resources to help people connect to all the existing services. And a lot of these service providers I've mentioned come there to provide services, including a number of insurance companies and even phone companies to provide phones and other services. So
It's also a permanent address for them.
yeah, we provide permanent addresses at JAPA, and so we've been providing permanent addresses to help people get jobs and to be connected to resources and to receive important communications. So, you know, there'll also be a garden, but really in addition to housing and giving people a home that they can truly afford, and everybody in this village will pay rent. These are folks that want to be there. When you pay rent, there's dignity in that, and you have control over your future, and you want to take care of your place. You have pride of ownership, and you don't want anybody around doesn't feel the same way. So we're following a model of Community First Village in Austin, Texas. Many of you may have seen it on the Today Show or on CBS Mornings, or a variety that have been on about everything recently, including most recently the New York Times, a podcast here in December, Joe Rogan, you name it. The reason that they're getting so much attention is because the model works. It's the best model we've ever seen or read about in the entire country that helps lift people out of chronic homelessness successfully. They too have an 80% success rate. People come there, they stay till they die. So it's really not just the housing and the buildings and the programs and services that we and other service providers will offer, but it's the sense of community, and that's why they call it Community First. So I know that's not really germane to rezoning, but we just want you guys to know that we're following a very successful model. And when you have housing will never solve homelessness, but community will. And so it's all about community. And then I just also want to touch on transportation with a minute here, and that is that transportation is obviously an issue. This is a fairly undeveloped area to date. And so we've worked very closely with DART leadership to develop what's called the JAPA Village DART Transportation Plan. We've already purchased a DART passenger van, and we have the program and the work instructions and the forms set up. So it's a matter of a vehicle, drivers, and a scheduling system. And so we'll also take people not only to the local bus stops as we work with DART to, those might change from time to time, but also we'll take people directly to medical appointments and other important appointments and for grocery visits and things. So about 20% of the residents, a lot of folks that are experiencing homelessness have a car. Most of them have friends that have cars. It's just like in your neighborhood. And when our kids were growing up, maybe they didn't have a car yet, or they, and friends come pick them up. And so there'll be plenty of parking, and each resident will have a written transportation plan so that we can help them with jobs and other important aspects of their communication. And those who need a monthly bus pass and don't have any other transportation will be provided it. So we believe we've really addressed the transportation question. Thank you very much.
Okay, this is our draft conceptual land plan, and I don't want to put too much, it'll be a variant of this by the time we go through all the permitting and get approvals that we need to. But we're looking to do this in a couple phases, 27 homes in the first phase, and Phase 1A, 27 homes in 1B. Of these 50 formerly resident, homeless people, we'll also have a village manager as well as 3 volunteer homes that volunteers who want to work amongst this clientele will be housed in this subdivision as well. So the benefits to our project is lift 50 chronically homeless people off the street and into permanent housing by winter 26-27. Whether we can reach the goal is a function of how fast we can get through rezoning, permitting, and fundraising. I'm on the JAPA board. I'm the project director for JAPA Village. I'm also a professional engineer with 40 years experience developing and executing large industrial projects globally. Using the city's cost of homelessness, lifting 50 people off the street equates to a little less than $3 million savings each year. So if we can get, and I think in retrospect, had we been able to go through and, this is a savings that starts immediately once you get them into permanent housing, and it'll be accomplished with zero funding from the city. So given we purchased the property from the city of Des Moines and Wastewater Reclamation Authority for the specific purpose of rezoning it and developing the JAPA Village, given the overwhelming positive response we've gotten in our neighborhood meetings and conversations with neighbors, and we have had many conversations with neighbors and others, at the lack of availability of permanent homes for chronically homeless people, and given that JAPA is acquiesced to all the requirements of city staff, we kindly ask y'all to vote for approval of the rezoning request. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you.
Yeah, and our engineers and architects are here as well as.
Do you have questions for the applicant?
Yes, I have a question. Will there be any cooking units in the individual units?
There'll be kitchenettes, so maybe hot plates, microwave, but not, and maybe some of the larger units. We haven't filled out all those details yet, but it's a livable space, as is for sure. Then we also have in the community building a commercial kitchen that can be used by residents.
And each unit will have a restroom?
Yes, sir. Each will have water, sewer, a restroom, bed area for bedroom, shower. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Will?
I have a question about the resurfacing or the hard surfacing of County Line Road. Have you worked through your plan in terms of the construction specifications with, the traffic and transportation of the city engineers department?
No, but that's a requirement. That's absolutely a requirement, and we're not looking to take any shortcuts whatsoever. Snyder Engineering is our engineering firm, and they'll be handling all of that.
Thank you.
I have a few questions. Todd, I think, had mentioned that we did see this a few years ago and that it was with. Could you speak to that a little bit more?
Sure.
Thank you. We're going to team tag the questions here. So yeah, thank you for hearing this project again. You guys did give us a unanimous recommendation back in 2021. Shortly after that, we did an inventory of the votes that we had and realized that we didn't have enough votes to take the project forward. So we asked to delay the project. We understood that after you receive a recommendation, you have, sounded like maybe it was untested, but fairly unlimited amount of time to bring it up for the votes. It was at least 2 years or more. So our intention was to delay it, and it was inadvertently administratively dismissed in, I think, the last council meeting in December before the council changed.
Of 2021.
Of 2021, and I think then the council changed, in January of that following year. And so if you were to talk to Linda Westergaard or Carl Voss or some of the people that voted, or that were a part of that at that time and voted for what turned out to be a dismissal, what they thought they were voting for was to delay it, to basically delay it, dismiss it until a future time, not dismiss it personally. So it really wasn't our intent to have to come through this process again. So we're here again. But that's what happened. It was inadvertently administratively dismissed. city councils make mistakes all the time, I'm told, and they can be undone in the next meeting, but the next meeting had different council members, and so as much as Linda and Carl and some others worked to try to, to undo that, it was just impossible legally or administratively to undo. So we were required to come back through the process again, and that's why we're here today.
My next two questions are probably for you two, and I'll just ask them in a row, and then you can
Sure.
address them. You're getting zero funding from the city, I see, and so I was just wondering, how much this is going to cost and where the funding is coming from. And then secondly, I am on the Broadlawns board as well, and that's the first I've heard of a partnership out there.
Yeah, so we worked with Dr. Yogi Shaw, and Yogi introduced us to the free clinics of Iowa when we had meetings. Now, this was back in 2021 when we had the initial meetings and learned about all the requirements, and then we built those into our original community center and have continued to build them into our modified plans as we've gone forward. So it's been part of our plan. We've touched base with them a couple times over the years, but that's been our intention from day one and was part of our plan last time. I'm sorry, what was your other question?
About the funding.
Oh, funding, yeah. We are privately funded. Did you want to take that one?
Well, I did, before you throw any numbers out.
Oh, I wasn't going to throw any. No, I don't.
You asked about what the cost was?
Well, yeah, it just seems it's quite expensive to pave roads and put in sewers and,
Right,
all that,
right.
so.
Right, and let me say that once we get through the development process and rezoned and get a little bit further, then we'll build up our budgets. We've got a number that we're not prepared to state, but we've got to make sure that reality matches. But
It's subject to change because as we go through this process and we learn what other city requirements might be there or what changes we need to make the project viable and successful, then we're going to have to make those changes, and that's going to affect cost. So all of our cost estimates are way out of date. But we're privately funded, and we have just a great donor base, and that donor base has continued to grow over the years, and that's how we've helped we're helping a family or individual get off the streets every week of the year now. And in fact, last year we helped 91 people. We've already helped 9 people off the streets just in the last 3 weeks since January 1st. So I'm really proud of our team and what we're able to do with so many volunteers. So many people in Des Moines have engaged in this work, and that's why we're able to do it.
Are these all individual homes? Is there any housing for couples or families, and will there be children?
Yes. Thank you for your question, yes. No, there will not be children off of the streets. We work closely with Iowa Homeless Youth. This is for adults, and it's for primarily single adults. Yes, there will be couples. If you can imagine being with your partner in a small, 180 to 380 square foot home, 24/7, most people are going to need to have a home next door to each other, and then they can get together whenever they want. But this is for individuals, adults, and there will be families living in the village, though. Jim mentioned the volunteers that live in the village, and that's part of the magic of the community down in Austin. They have a ratio of 1 to 18 volunteers living in the village permanently. So these are folks that are there 24/7, 365. And so down there, they've got families with kids, and it's just it's kind of counterintuitive for people to kind of think about this, folks that have been on the streets for a long time in permanent homes, paying their own rent, and there's children running around. But this is not for homeless children. Yes, and so.
My next question is, during Shiroshi's presentation, there was a difference made between permanent housing and temporary housing.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what that difference is?
Yeah, these are all permanent homes that we're building for residents. We actually call the residents neighbors, as they do down in Austin. But we built some tiny homes initially based on an earlier concept of transitional housing. And we'd like to put those on the property, just as Austin has done. That's where volunteers, kids and people come in and they'll stay overnight or stay for a couple nights and work in the village. But we're going to put those homes in a different area, and they're not permanent homes. We also just want to allow for maximum flexibility in case we need to temporarily house somebody before their home is ready. So it's really for kind of outside things, but all of the homes, the 50 people, the 54 people that will live there, including the 50 formerly homeless and 4 that are not, will all be permanent homes built, to code.
This is a really large project. And my first concern was transportation. I mean, these people are supposed to have jobs, and there's absolutely no transportation. But it appears that you've addressed that. So can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, yeah, and I also want to clarify because so many services and opportunities for work, et cetera, will be on site. So in Austin, they paid out $2.1 million last year in dignified income. So anything that you could hire out and would traditionally hire out to a professional service provider, from lawn care to snow removal to janitorial services, all of these things can be done by neighbors in the village that want to work, that want to own that want to have that pride of ownership and make that money. So they've done a really amazing thing, and they figured out how to, if you've been on the streets for a number of years, you're never likely going to hold a 40-hour-a-week job and show up every day from 8 to 5 and just be there, faithfully. And so what they've come up with is 2-hour work projects. And so you take on a 2-hour work project, it's $15 an hour, and you take as long as you want to do it, but it can be done in 2 hours, it can be done in less than 2 hours. And then if you want to do some more work that day, you take on another project. So you can have not only mental health days or weeks, but you just know that you have to pay your rent at the end of the month, just like the rest of us do. And so you work as much as you want to, depending on, you even choose your own home, depending on how much you want to spend and what size of home and amenities you want, just again, like we all do. So did I answer your question?
Yeah, no, and I just wondered, what is the average rent then?
Oh, so the rents will be $295, $395, $495. They're reduced. They're essentially 30% of mean area income. And so someone who is on SSI at $943 a month will be able to afford a home that's basically right at 35% of their income, $295 a month. That's hard to imagine for an independent architecturally designed home.
Yeah, well, and I'm a fundraiser here in the community, and this is a big project. So, and this is maybe to the city. What would happen if it doesn't? If it's not, what if it's not sustainable?
Let me say this, just talking about the cost of the project. First off, we owe nothing. We bought the property free and clear. That was done in weeks. We had to raise the money for that, and we did that after we'd done all our normal fundraising. And several people that had never been involved with JAPA before were the ones that made that happen. The other thing is we're 100%, unless we have the funding to do something, we won't go forward with it. And we've got a number of both engineering and construction firms who have approached us and said they'd like to provide services and work, on the site, and and that's going to defray a lot of costs. So what we're in the process now of is getting through rezoning, and once we know we've got our rezoning approved, we'll start on all the engineering that's required to work with the contractors, so they know, so that we can get from them, how much they're willing to do for free, how much they'll need, compensated for, and so we're in a process, but we do appreciate the point that it's going to cost significant money. This is not a large project. I work on large projects, and this is not a large project. But, a $300 million project is a small, if it's going to cost, you just don't want to get in any money problems.
I've got a question operationally, unless you're following
I was just
up.
going to add that our treasurer on our board, Tom Hromatka, is here with us. He's the head of our audit committee. So if you have any direct questions or any more questions, I think about finance, I'd love to let him step up here in the yellow sweater, step up and address those, because he would really be a great person. But secondly, I would invite you to join our fundraising and help us, because But I just should have said you're welcome to join us. It's a lot of people like you that are helping us get to where we are. And, speaking of that pro bono services, BSB Design, largest residential architects in America, Simonson and Associates and Snyder Engineering have been helping us pro bono and providing a lot of pro bono services. So, and that's really been the thing that we found with a lot of companies, is that they really want to contribute to this problem of homelessness in Des Moines, and this is something that they can do.
Is it possible to get a little bit more detail, or if you can dive a little deeper on the partnerships? And is this going to be part of the centralized intake system for homelessness? How are the partners going to get to your site? Because all of the services are located downtown, basically.
Right.
And we're putting a village almost at the city limits. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and our resource center is on Euclid Avenue on the north side as well. And so, yeah, we have that issue now. So we've helped these 184 people get into housing, and so we're very good at helping folks get into housing. We also have been talking to Angie Arthur at Homeward about, there's this list of over 700 folks. I think it might be over 800 now. It's been over 700 for more than 2 years. And these are folks that are qualified for government subsidized or even free housing, and there's no housing for them. And that's certainly something that we could help with. I think we could take some of those folks and get them off that list into housing. So that's certainly in consideration.
Part of your question, I thought, was on transportation. I mean, would this be, are you anticipating sort of like the DART on demand is actually going to be a resource you're needing here? Or like how are you, transportation of the individuals on site when they do need to go?
Yeah, if they don't have a car and if they do need to go off site, again, a lot of services, work, everything on site. But of course, people are going to want to go off site just for leisure, if nothing else. So if they're scheduled and they have a job or something, they'll already be on the schedule, and someone will be waiting for them at the bus stop or waiting for them at the van to take them, the passenger van. If they don't, they'll come down and say, hey, I need a ride, just kind of like at the hotel. If you didn't, you need a shuttle. You need to come down and say, I need a shuttle to the airport, need a shuttle into town or to the bus stop or to the grocery store. And, the driver, if they don't have anybody to drive at that moment, maybe they're over trimming a tree or trimming a bush, but they're like, oh, I got somebody who needs a ride. And they drop that and they come over and give them a ride. So just kind of similar to a hotel.
Okay, so you have transportation built into the model. That
Oh, yeah, that transportation plan I talked about, we've already purchased the DART transportation van. It's a 12-passenger van that we purchased from DART for this purpose, and we'll have a driver and a system, and that's all part of the Joppa Village DART transportation plan.
As a quick note, so I got two questions, I got some more curiosities. I mean, I aggressively love projects like this. One of the things I did like about your presentation, I hope the facts and research that you share, like especially the sort of the no-brainer proven ROI of these programs from a social perspective, is hopefully shared more broadly, because when we see programs like this in other communities, within our other neighborhoods, where we might have individuals saying, I think that might be bad for us, the evidence shows it's not. I'm really, really glad you presented that, and I hope that gets shared more broadly, because the 3 million number is bonkers to think about, but it is real and it's proven. We've seen it. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I'm assuming here, given some of the words you guys use in the presentation, is this intended to be a tax-exempt property, or is this pilots evolved? I mean, what's the actual status of this from a revenue perspective of the city once it's running?
Yeah, so you're talking about property taxes.
Yep.
Yeah, as a nonprofit, we pay all taxes. We pay sales tax, we pay everything but income tax and property tax. And so we would not be likely subject to property tax on this particular location. But I think the case could be made that $3 million a year, while it's a savings and not, revenue, it's much greater savings or revenue or value than what the property taxes would amount to. That's not just $3 million the first year, it's $3 million every year.
Yeah, no, I get it. But
and once we're successful, we hope to expand it. And so, if we, $3 million per 50 homes.
I'm just curious, your leaning is that this would be tax exempt, no pilot, it would be basically, there's no revenue.
Yeah, we're not planning to require any taxpayer funding to do the project. We're planning to actually save the city $3 million a year and fund a $3 million road just to be able to do it.
And then also, so you use the word ministry on slide 1. I'm curious, is there a religious leaning or flavor respect to what that ministry is?
No, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. We're a public charity, not a religious organization. We're not shy about being faith-based. We're actually Christian. We're actually Christ-based. But we have folks that don't believe in God. We've got every denomination. We've got everything you could imagine. And so there's no litmus test for volunteering. Any of you are welcome to come.
Or being a resident.
Oh, yeah. No litmus test for being a resident. We provide services to everybody without any question.
What's ministry mean then?
Oh, it's a term that we use because we're ministering to people. We care about them. We're doing it because we're called by God to do it. And it's not like a business, but it's just a term that we use. When you ministering, really, like if you think about a hospital, they're ministering to patients. So it's just a an adjective for what we do.
Gotcha.
But it's not religious, it's not proselytizing, it's not, it's very much just caring on people and loving them, letting them know they're loved.
I've got a,
Yes, sir.
what may be a naive question. Is there a larger kind of approach to homelessness in the city of Des Moines that this fills a void that others don't provide?
Yeah,
Or do you collaborate and complement other groups? And is there some larger entity that kind of makes sure that we're addressing it and this is going to fill the need that we need?
Yeah, so the answer is yes, we're collaborating. In fact, it would be remiss to leave you guys thinking we help 684 people get off the streets by ourselves, because we do that in conjunction with what we call our partners in town. And what we do is we help folks access existing resources, and then we fill gaps with private funding. And so that gap might be as simple as transportation, or paying for their meds, or, helping them with a deposit, or, helping with barriers like that. But another gap is housing that's truly affordable for chronically homeless folks. In fact, any kind of housing. I mentioned the people with over 700 folks that are qualified for housing. Many of those are chronically homeless. And so this does very much augment that. We meet with various groups all the time. And so there are coalitions. We have the Joppa Village Coalition that meets on this particular project, but there's also work groups, and so we're collaborating with all the other organizations in town on a weekly and monthly basis. Does that answer your question?
Mostly.
Thank you.
And another last question is was this the ideal place for this?
It is. Well, the ideal place would be right smack downtown, right next to all the services. There's just no land available. We worked with the city, who looked at all the available land. We worked with the county to look at land near the city that was outside in the county. We looked at several hundred properties before the Joppa Village Coalition was formed in December of 2022, about 3 years ago. And since then, we've looked at over 300 properties. We've vetted a number. We've come close on a number. There is no perfect property, and so if we're waiting for a perfect property, then we're waiting forever. But this is, everybody believes, and when I say everybody, on our Village Coalition, we have council members, Linda Westergaard, Carl Voss is the chair, and Mike Simonson, and others we've talked to. Everybody believes, staff, that this is the ideal property, and we very much believe that. It's what's available, right? There's just, out of what's available now, what's left, this is the ideal property.
And affordable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I have something to add. And just along these lines, and in terms of making the argument, y'all are doing a great job talking about the development side. However, those of us who work in housing, in homelessness, and we know that homelessness is a housing problem, right? But there is a misconception among some people that folks are choosing to be homeless. And so giving the numbers, but exactly how many units are available in the Des Moines metro area at $295 a month for folks who are living on a fixed income might be really helpful, additional, like that would be a really nice extra slide to put in there for people, because the answer is zero.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the answer is pretty clearly zero.
Right, and so there's no fear of overburdening the city with housing assistance for very low-income people. But yet, it's even helpful to let people know that. So that might be some additional information to add.
Thank you, Jane. I
You are
appreciate
filling a huge gap that we can't, you're putting a drop, right, in a giant ocean size of need. So I appreciate the work that you're doing.
Yeah, and most of the programs that you see out there, they're virtually all great programs, and they're all necessary, but most of them involve taxpayer expense. And so, we're happy to be able to provide this without taking anything away from our federally funded partners that have their own needs to fund and our own programs that we depend on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we will invite any proponents of the project to come up to the podium if you wish to speak.
Speak in favor.
In favor, yep. Please come up to the podium, state your name and address. You have up to 5 minutes. And you can sign in on that white sheet afterwards.
It's like saying, reading War and Peace in 5 minutes. Don't take my time for getting ready, please. First of all, my name is Jerome L. Jerry Bradley, 4605 Southwest 15th Street, Des Moines, Iowa, 50315-3310. I have been and have lived on the south side almost my entire life. I spent 20 years in the military as a pilot, so the only time that I was away from the south side was when I was either being deployed or serving at least a year overseas. I am as much of a skeptic as any single person in this room as to what we are looking at. I went down to Austin. I was very impressed with what they have built down there, and they are expanding exponentially. Some of the things, and I wrote a whole page with the notes here, but some of the things I think that we should consider is, one, give these folks a chance. If you don't give them a chance, you're never going to know whether it's successful or not. They've looked at all the T's and the I's, and I am one who believes in very firmly that let's not have eyewash. Let's not have something, if they want to do this, and what I have read, the city has put some pretty stringent requirements for them to do to move forward, which is going to enhance that area. Now, I full well realize that the only way that Des Moines can grow is south. We can't go north, can't go east, can't go west, so it's south. But how much development has literally gone on down there? Almost nothing. And here's a group of people who are willing to take on an operation to provide people with housing. I grew up on the south side. We never talked about homeless people. It wasn't a conversation that ever came up. I'm sure there were. But back then, you took care of your neighbors. Today, what's the first thing you hear when somebody looks at a project like this? Hey, I'm for it. Not in my neighborhood. We saw it happen over on Grand Avenue when people were opposed to a few parking spots. And a very large, prestigious operation left and went out west. You talk about expenses. What would happen if a $735 million project on Fluor Drive failed with a $350 million bond issue through Polk County? So what I'm saying is, these folks have looked at all of the aspects, even to the fact of saying, what about safety? What about perimeter safety? They're willing to work with the sheriff's department, city police department. Be open. I feel that their transparency has been, and I set fairly high standards when it comes to transparency, because I've been involved in a lot of different things. As a matter of fact, as a pilot, we did something that had never been done ever before in the history of the military, and it was a success. When it comes to helping people get off the street in a permanent situation, I think this is an excellent opportunity. We cannot deny that there are always going to be some that don't want to live in any type of a shelter. That's just who they are. We can't do anything about that. But I know that there are homeless vets out there that would certainly jump at a chance to live in something like this. We have 20 veterans a day who are committing suicide. So if there's something like this that can be done, and it takes the approval of the zoning commission to let it move forward, give them that chance. It's privately funded. They're not asking anything from Des Moines. They're not asking anything from Polk County. They're funding it on their own ability. The help that they need is for the zoning board to give this approval and then let it move forward with it.
Thank you.
Let them.
We're up to 5 minutes if you want to wrap up your thoughts or just...
I can simply say it this way. I used to tell my students in school, there's absolutely no education in the second kick of a mule. These folks understand that. And they're not willing to take that kick, but they're willing to put themselves on the line and do what they say they can do. So my final statement would be, give them a chance. And if you have any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you. Please don't forget to sign in on the white sheet. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this project? If so, please come up to the podium. State your name and address. You have up to 5 minutes.
Well, I might add too that I'm on the board of directors for Water South Neighborhood Association, but these are my opinions.
Hi. My name is Penny Harrison. I live at 4500 Southwest 29th Street. I'm a realtor of 25 years, and I'm on the board for the Southern Hills Neighborhood Association. Excuse me. I had the opportunity to go down to Austin, Texas, and visit the village, and I highly recommend, if you have any questions, get in a hold of Joe, and he can probably send you the link where you can view for yourself that village. I was impressed at the way every person there was very humble, but they were so excited to be homeowners. I didn't see a property that was in disarray. They were tidy. Everybody was looking out for themselves. And as we know, any of us could become homeless. We could have a terrible fire. We could have a medical issue where we become homeless because we have such big medical bills. I've known people that are homeless, and I've worked, not with JOPA, but I have gone down to the camps myself many times to help people. But I really, truly believe that this is needed and that this will work. I've seen how it worked in Austin, and if you can go down to Austin, Texas, any of you, and view that, you really should go, because I think you'd be really impressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak in support, please come up to the podium. You have up to 5 minutes. State your name and address.
Thank you. Michael Smith, 16754 Winston Circle. I'm a Clive resident. First, I'd like to say thank you to the staff for their recommendation. I've worked with JOPA for 10 years as a volunteer. I'm here as much to just vouch for JOPA and what they do, and coming alongside people that need help. And they're a fine organization. It's been a privilege to work alongside Joe and his staff and the other volunteers. A lot smarter people than me understand the causes and solutions for homelessness. I work with these folks, and I can tell you this isn't going to solve every problem. But one of the things that I've learned in the last 10 to 15 years of working with them is that it's part of the solution, right? Is it a step in the right direction? Yes, it is. And I can't imagine in the city, I'm a South Sider myself. I had family that lived right around the corner from here. My uncle has passed away now, but I can tell you right now he would support this solution. It's a great solution. It's a great location for it, and so I just want to, put my hat in the ring as an advocate for JOPA and for the project. Thank you for your time.
I have a question.
Thank you.
I have a question, please.
For the speaker?
Yes. For our speaker. Enlighten me of my ignorance. Tell me what JAPA as an acronym stands for, and tell me if this is just a local organization, if it's a larger organization in some regard or another.
Well, you're asking me, you're probably best to ask Joe, but JAPA was one of the first places in Acts that people did charitable things. Joe, is that a fair assessment?
In the Bible.
In the Bible? So again, Joe's probably a better person to speak to that. It's a local organization, and my association with them has been, as a person that was introduced to them locally. I don't know if that answers your question. Like I said, I think Joe would be a better speaker to that topic than myself, but glad to.
I should have asked the question earlier, but you've been helpful, and so thanks very much.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of the project? Anyone neutral? Neutral, please come up to the podium. State your name and address. You have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commission. Scott McMurray, United Properties Investment Company, 4521 Fleur Drive. The reason I say I'm neutral is because I don't think anybody can argue with the mission of JAPA. I spent a lot of time on the phone with Mr. Hagberg. His personal story, his passion, the mission, fabulous. Would never argue against it. What concerns me a little bit is the idea that there's nothing in this area, nothing's been done in this area, and I thought I might provide a little bit of history. I have onion skin paper in my file cabinets when they preserved the corridor for the bypass that was going to open in 1974 that didn't open until 2002. We started investing out there in the early to mid 60s. Started with a horse farm. It turned into a 27-hole country club with today about $450 million worth of development around it. Most of it not in Des Moines. It's in Norwalk, not by our choice or any of your choices, but there was an arbitrary line drawn at some point that bifurcated the property. Today, and I don't know if this will show up, won't show up, I can just hold it up. But
we can turn
We
on.
can turn the document camera on.
Do I do that? There we go. So these colored pieces are in the city of Des Moines right now. You see the airport interchange at Fleur Drive. Those colored pieces are all owned by our entities and are all going through the processes with the city of Des Moines right now for development plans. The bulk of it, south of Echo Valley Drive, County Line Road, is already in an approved PUD. So if you can see this, that's the interchange for the airport right there. There's the Casey sitting right there. This is 250 acres of development, many houses, many streets, many miles of sewer infrastructure, all of these things. So when I look at this and I say, oh, this is out in the middle of nowhere, it's not going to bother anybody, it's going to be great, I'm a little frustrated. I feel ignored. And I feel ignored because there's about $600 or $700 million worth of development from the airport north to downtown Des Moines. I bring people into town all the time, and this is typically what happens. They fly into the airport, we drive downtown, we see everything exciting, we go to meetings. They want to go to Ruth's Chris in West Des Moines for dinner and stay out there. And when we come back to the airport, we get off the airport exit, and what do we see? We're seeing a bunch of metal buildings. We're not seeing the thoughtfulness of development and beautification and Center Islands and Waterworks Park and Grays Lake going to the south of the airport that we see going to the north of the airport. My point in all of this is that this area, like this gentleman pointed out, we can only grow south. And there is a lot of opportunity out there that requires a lot of thought. And when I see a project come through, I'm going to do everything I can to get behind it because I want the development out there. It's going to help us all. But when I see a project come through that's been through once, that's now coming through with only the first phase of the first half of the property be rezoned, which implies one thing to me. You got to come back. Because if this project only ends up being the first 10 acres or phase one of the first 10 acres, then what? what do? We have this thing sitting in the middle of what is currently zoned business park. It could be in the middle of, who knows, office space might come back into vogue. There might be a big commercial development on the airport exit, with a big company that has people flying in and out all the time, and we have 5 acres of this village sitting in the middle of the business park. So what I would kindly ask the commission to do is say, and I happen to think there are better locations, by the way. There's got to be some locations on a street that already exists. I build streets. They're expensive. I put in sewer. They're expensive. It's tough. Go try to develop a single residential lot today. It is a very expensive endeavor. I would be willing to bet there's some paving, some underutilized buildings. Two Rivers Marketing is becoming a charter school. There are all kinds of opportunities around that maybe could be a better location or could happen in a quicker period of time. Your rezoning tonight, honestly, it does nothing. Their site plans aren't approved, their development plans aren't approved, their construction plans aren't approved, the construction plans for the street aren't approved, the infrastructure's not approved, the funding's not there. Why are we going and doing a piecemeal rezoning of this thing? I'll add one more point before my time's up. For all of the years that we've been out there since the mid-'60s, the southeast quadrant of Fleur and County Line Road has been a century farm. That means over 100 years. That recently changed hands and got in the hands of somebody who wants to develop it. We have been waiting for this for a very long time. It would be nice to have some development partners out there that are trying to create this sense of place in the city of Des Moines that it's finally in hands where that can be done. We might get hotels, we might get restaurants on the airport exit, we might get things to service this PUD, this community that isn't pie in the sky. The first half of it's already been completed. It's visible. You can go see it. There's been 2 home shows there. 2014,
5 minutes are up
2017.
if you want to wrap up.
Perfect. I would just ask you to zone the property when it's ready to be developed and zone it all at once or not at all so that we don't end up with a piecemeal thing in the middle of what we think is a business park on the intersection at the airport exit. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak, please don't forget to sign in on the white sheet. Anyone else who would like to speak neutral? Please come up to the podium, state your name and address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
How you doing? My name is Blake Schultz. I live in Norwalk, in one of the developments that Scott here was showing you. I'm actually the owner of the Century Farm that was purchased, the 68 acres south of where this is going. I'll just kind of, piggyback off what Scott said. It's there's not a whole lot going on in the south side of Des Moines, and you're right, there doesn't need to be development down there. This is going to somewhat get in the way of that. Now, paving a road and everything is good, and it will spur some things, but you're going to deter a lot of property and value creation that's going to benefit the city by development in the south side, providing other opportunities for people. That's not just this opportunity. That stuff is going to get minimized by this going in around there, because there's a lot of residential, commercial, and you don't want to infringe on what's already being developed there and what's going on there. And I'll just say, like you said before, they've said it, this is not the right place. This is not their ideal place to go. They would rather go downtown. I don't know the real possibilities of that, if there will be an opportunity somewhere else downtown where they can be closer to services or other things that, benefits and helps what's going on there. But I just think there's a different place than this that would be a lot more beneficial to their mission and what they're trying to accomplish. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak Neutral? Anyone in opposition who would like to speak in opposition to the project? Seeing none, the applicant does have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Can I bring back my presentation? I did have a good conversation with Scott. We talked to him about what we're looking to put up and that everything that we're doing is architecturally pleasing. We have professional landscape architects doing the land plan and the design as well as the entrance feature. Professional, largest residential architect in the U.S. designing the small homes. And yes, these are small homes, but they're not tacky homes. And one of the things that, and Scott referenced my history. Jerry and I went into the same engagement down in Southeast Asia, and I came back with a serious drug problem. And Vietnam, yeah. And I was homeless as well. And so I found, where I got my life turned around was an abandoned farmhouse at the end of a dead-end road in a river valley between Stratford and Webster City. So and I've gone on to do global projects around the world. What we're looking to do is give people a dignified hand up, not a handout, but a hand up. You're going to have to pay for this. And I understand that people who live in $1.5 million homes don't, like to be in the middle of a bunch of other $1.5 million homes. But the fact is, we've got a big society and we've got a wide range. I think this would be a beautiful testament to have what we're doing sitting in amongst a bunch of other places, because we're not a blight on the community and will not be a blight in this area. Will be a benefit in every sense of the word. Do you have any?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to add that I wanted to clarify, we do believe this is the very best property. We have looked at literally over 500 properties. We've been researching properties every day, every week, if not day, for 11 years. And I can tell you that there is no other property that fits the criteria that we have. We need to be near a bus stop, near a convenience store, and it needs to be a place that will work for the folks that we're serving. So I just wanted to clarify that for Blake. And guys, on the developer side, if we end up getting this rezoned, as we've said, as you guys know, the area is intended to be residential, and so, it hasn't been used, been decommissioned for 30 years. We want to do something with this property. It's not the first property anyone would pick to develop on because it's very difficult to develop on. It's not flat, and it's not something that's ready to be developed on. So we're willing to take on that cost and to help improve the environment. And so if you were to rezone it residential, and maybe Blake or Scott or someone else could show us a better property, and we had to then swap properties, sell property and buy another one or swap them or whatever we do, we can do that later. Rezoning it residential is not going to hurt the area, and it's going to allow us a chance, as they said, to be able to do this project. I also just wanted to speak to the economic value, and a lot of folks will think that this is going to depress valuations. That's never happened. There's close to 200 villages around the country, in addition to Community First in Austin, and never have property values gone down. And down in Texas, for example, they're surrounded by, thank you. You want to take that slide on? Go ahead.
That's the graphic.
Yeah.
This is Community First. This yellow area is Community First. It's surrounded by residential property. And the CEO, Alan Graham, reports that property values have tripled in the time that they've been in there. So we don't believe we're going to depress land values at all.
Another concern that comes up, and this wasn't brought up today, but crime, and down in Austin, which also doesn't materialize, down in Austin there have been no reported crimes in like the 15, 16 years they've been operating in the village, from people in the village in any surrounding community, zero. but there have been 13 crimes of people coming into the community and stealing things or doing something in the community from the surrounding neighborhood. So it doesn't pan out the way you might think. And I'll tell you, we invited Blake, I believe we invited you down, and we'll invite you on the next trip again. But, and Scott, you're welcome to come, or Mike Capola, the owner of your company, as I understand it. They're all invited. We've taken, I believe, close to 40 leaders down, if not more than 40 business leaders, and from Scott Sanders and Malcolm to Amber Lewis to other folks. And so we just invite you all, as Penny did, to come down and see this for yourself, because it's very, very counterintuitive. It's not what Blake thinks it is. It is not a blight. In fact, this property you can't even see very well from any direction, and the property they're going to develop is downhill from there. So it's not possible to really see it. But if you did see it, you'd want to see it, because as Matt McCoy said, when he went down to see it, our supervisor, he said, one of our supervisors, he said, it's a beautiful community, a place I'd be proud to live next to. He said, it's something that we can do in Des Moines and we should do. And so he's somebody that can be a testament to that. So it's just not what you think. It's so counterintuitive that I wish you all could see it.
Thank you. With that, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and let the commission deliberate.
My first comment is I'm glad to see developers coming across us that they're offering solutions to real problems. We live in a culture that has different income groups, and I'm glad to see developers developing projects that are realistic and based upon actual evidence proven successful elsewhere. We've had numerous developers coming before us in my almost 10 years on the board here. They always want to develop houses at $300,000 and up. And our last meeting, we had someone who thought he was talking about the middle market at $500,000 unit. I think this JAPA has done an excellent job, and I support this project wholeheartedly, and I'm glad they're doing this job because there's a need for housing for low-income residents. They are human beings like everyone else, and they're entitled to their opportunity to live in a decent, clean home. And I support this project, and I wish to make a motion to approve it.
Francis, I appreciate what you're saying, and I agree with you on that. My question is that we took the time to figure out what should be happening in our city and where, and what's the best place for businesses and housing and things like that. And so what was supposed to be there, what would be the economic impact, and if we believed in it, why did we sell it? Did we know what their initial idea was for the project?
Yeah, I can't speak to the sale of a WRA land. That's okay.
I have a question sort of in line with that, which is, if we, let's just say we rezone this, I have my own hesitations about the feasibility of it, but what if we rezone it and then nothing happens like it did before? What happens then?
Well,
You have to rezone that.
yeah, I mean, that's no different than any rezoning that comes before you. I mean, that's just the nature of development and zoning. And the zoning, if they don't proceed, it's empty land. I mean, it's not the same as like we're issuing them a building permit that they can go build tomorrow. There's still a lot of stuff ahead of us. So it's not somebody else can come pick up that permit and start building. If somebody comes in behind them, they're going to there's plating, there's site plan requirements, there's infrastructure requirements. The zoning conditions would still apply. And actually, it's probably not any different than the land to the west that was rezoned for the
Harvest Academy?
Yeah, Harvest Academy. Thank you. I'm glad you have a good memory. In that project, it appears is moving forward, but the property's been rezoned.
Okay, thank you.
And I have something to say about that. I mean, this is perpetually a chicken and the egg question, right? It's expensive to develop all of those other, and again, we're looking to a nonprofit that's producing housing that doesn't exist for a segment of the population, a segment of the market. There is no line of people looking to build this housing. And I think I really encourage my colleagues on this commission to remember that these delays cost money. And we are always balancing the good, the greater good and the civic good, right? When we're thinking about development. And so for me, if we could rezone both pieces right now, I would say do that. Why are we putting more expense on a project that will benefit the most vulnerable members of our community in such a short period of time? So I really encourage, again, my fellow commissioners to remember that we are here to represent the entire city, and we have an opportunity. There's always going to be other developers. I'm thrilled to see that they are in communication with the folks who own other parcels nearby that haven't been developed yet, because there's so many of these questions and challenges that can be addressed through design, right? And so if they know this is happening, they can work together to create spaces that work for everyone. I know change is hard. I know it is. But I think this is a tremendous opportunity for us to do brave, good work, and so clearly I support.
Thank you.
To sort of echo off of that as well, I think when we look at the originators of TIF, this is the type of project that is now being proven that the city should probably be driving more than it having to go into the public service. We shouldn't be depending on the charity of others for things that are our community responsibilities. So I would say that part should probably not be missed in this whole bigger picture. The second piece, though, actually, I'm really glad they put the aerial from Austin, because it really sort of preempts where I was going to go with the comments with respect to Scott. I mean, when you're looking at, while we may not have been developing from south, from north to south as we should, and I would argue you should start taking them to Harbinger instead. We've done a lot on that road, so you don't have to worry about going out west. But we are seeing that development will be effectively coming north at the high value and providing the density and need for jobs that are going to, in fact, benefit this location, because we will be putting more jobs nearer where these are. And if this is successful, and is successful in a self-contained manner, there may not be a reason that we would need to rezone the light industrial if we now have individuals who are able to support jobs that may be moving there closer to allow people to just walk over to work. So in some ways, I don't know if it's a strategy or whether it's just lucky. Only zoning half to me isn't a major concern when you think that this may be an actual another example of a really, really good mixed-use piece of property that may need mixed zonings. And we don't know what the future is going to hold. I hope the future for this is extremely successful. I aggressively agree with Francis again, which is like 5 and 10 years to this level. But I do think that this is a great project. I really, really hope we push for it, and I hope it is successful. And I do hope more of these projects are the cost is borne by where it should be, which is our community, not by private backers.
Anyone else would like to share comments? Otherwise, I'm not sure, Francis, if that was a motion.
Yes, it was a motion to approve staff.
Perfect, thank you for clarifying. We have a motion on the table. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Any abstentions, same sign. Motion passes. We do have an item today from our reports, and that's the nominating committee for the upcoming year. Jason?
Yeah, just we do this every year. Often get to it before the start of the year, but this year, just with everything, it's not coming up till January. Still totally appropriate within the confines of our bylaws, but the chair needs to appoint a nominating committee for the next round of officers. I think historically, maybe up to 3 or so people have volunteered to do that. Those folks will report back to staff and that they are ready. They don't have to tell us what the slate is, but just let us know that you're ready, so we can make sure, this will be on the next agenda for voting. So please, you'll need to move along. But anyway, I don't know if hopefully that explains it well.
Yes, so we will entertain some volunteers. Todd, thank you. Anyone else?
I'll volunteer for it.
Wait, so we're not voting on the new.
We're getting the committee first.
Nominating committee.
Oh.
We need at least 3 people to be on the nominating.
We're doing it a little late. Right?
Yes. It
Oh.
was supposed to happen at the last meeting.
Yeah.
Carolyn? Thank you.
I'm happy
Two?
to help too if
Emily?
you need more. yeah.
Perfect, 3. We have 3?
Yeah,
Four
Francis-
with Francis.
Francis.
Perfect. That's,
And we are behind what we normally do, but ironically, the bylaws actually say to do it in January. Like we were doing.
Chair now.
So,
It was dumb luck. It was dumb luck. I'll acknowledge it.
so could we basically have it ready by the next meeting then?
Yeah, that's what.
That's our goal,
It
okay.
has to be, yeah.
thank you for the volunteers. We have a committee. Any other committee directors' reports?
No, thank you.
All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I think so.
Okay.
Anyone?
I move we adjourn.
My
Thank
letter
you.
from last year.
Meeting adjourned.